Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me? If anybody can hear me, let me know.
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Welcome to the STAT 205 online class. It's Essentials of Statistics. It's a 7 week class, and we are going to try our best to cover the 10 chapters that are required for the course. So as you know, a 7 week course is not going to be as a 14 weeks class. So you should be prepared. That's the first thing I want you to know. You should be prepared to invest a little bit more time to the course than you do usually. This is an online class, so we are not going to be meeting regularly. But for the first week, I would like to have a meeting for the first meeting that we are having today, and I will have a second meeting on Thursday, so that I make sure that everybody is on the right pace. So I'm planning to have 3 meetings with you that you can attend as much as you can. Not that it's not mandatory, but I will encourage you to do so. For today, we are going to discuss chapter 1. On Thursday, we are going to discuss chapter 2, and I will see how it goes. If necessary, we are going to have another meeting to work on chapter 3. And once I am sure that everybody is on pace, we may not have regular meetings unless you request. But I'm going to see, based on your attendance, the time that is convenient. The meeting that I am planning for Thursday will be at 6 p.m. and I will see how the attendance is, whether we should bring it earlier or whether we should keep it at 6 p.m. But I will be holding office hours after all, but most of the time by appointment, because if you have a question, just send me an email. There will be a specific time, most likely on Thursday, where I will be available, but I will encourage you each time you have trouble, each time you are hesitating about an issue, each time you are not sure about the answer you put, which is marked wrong, just send me an email. If it is necessary, I might invite you for a Zoom meeting for 5 to 10 minutes just to explain that. So I will send you an email and we will agree on a specific time, any time to discuss that. I really want to help you as much as I can, and I want you to help yourself. So the course, as we see, is on Canvas. This is what you will see when you get on Canvas. Below here, you will have the syllabus. We are going to go over the syllabus. If I click here, I get the syllabus. So we want to go over the syllabus, in which we will look at what are the expectations. What are your expectations in this class? Very important to be successful in this class is having a TI 83, 84 calculator, which will make things really much easier for everybody. We are also going to use Excel, but If you are comfortable using any other software like Minitab or SPSS, you can feel free to use it. Uh, what is more important is the result. So as we move on from chapter 2 and 3, you will see we will learn how to use Excel to gather data, to organize it, and to compute the main statistics, which is called summary statistic, the mean, the mode, the median, the variance, and standard deviation using Excel. So that is why I want us to have those first meetings, which will help you start using Excel. It is not difficult, but it requires that we have a kind of face-to-face meeting. If you cannot make it, I'll try my best to remember to record. And if you are in any meeting with me and you can remember, ask me if we are recording. That will help those who are not able to attend. So a TI-8384 calculator is very, very useful for this class. That is why I say it is required. And so we are going to, this is the procedure of the class. We are going to have discussion. And I want you to know what a discussion is. It is not just about saying anything to just get rid of the assignment. It's about bringing in some input into the class by discussing with your classmate. So there is generally a topic. The first one is introducing yourself. Feel free to speak as if you are in a general class and you want your classmate to listen to you. And don't act as if you are just coming to meet up with an assignment requirement. Feel excited, show how happy you are to be in class in each assignment. So you will have to respond to at least 2 people. You can respond to as many as possible. Try to speak as much as possible. Don't just say, I am happy you are part of this class. Or don't just say, I agree with what you are saying, it is good. But say, I agree with what you are saying because I'd always give some argument, an additional argument to the reason why you agree or disagree with someone to get the full marks for discussion. So, and then in addition, discussion will count for 2 points each, and there are 5 of them that will make 10 points. So sometimes you might get 1.8 or 1.7, 1.5, depending on the quality of your discussion, of your post. But most of the time you get this point when you really speak as if you are interested in bringing a contribution to this topic. You don't necessarily need to be correct. It is your contribution, the feeling I have that this student is not just making a point to get the mark, but trying to really participate in the class. You are going to have homework at the end of each section. We are going to go over chapter 1 today, and then you should be able to do homework for chapter 1, which is due on Wednesday. And chapter 1 is the introduction, and it is an easy chapter, so make sure that you take your quiz and you do your homework. The homework is the first thing you want to do after going through the PowerPoint. We are going to go through PowerPoint for chapter 1. Most of all of those PowerPoints are audio PowerPoints. Sometimes I will give you some old videos of previous classes which you can use to learn more about the topic. But essentially, you have an audio video from me that you can listen to. And after listening to that video, make sure you are able to do the examples that are in the PowerPoint. And after doing those examples, you may now try to do your homework, or you can do more examples from your textbook. And if you are having trouble with the homework because you don't understand what it is talking about, send me an email. Your homework will be graded for 1 point for doing the homework. All I'm looking for in your homework is evidence that you actually did the homework. So when I see a homework just made of answers, maybe the question, well, what is the mean? You just write 12. You should write the mean is 12 or the mode is 16. Give me the feeling that you are doing the homework and you know what you are talking about. When you do that, you get the full mark, the 1 point, you get it. So there are 10 of those homework that will make 10 points. So if you have questions while you are doing your homework, then you can send me an email, and if I can respond to you by email and you understand, fine, or we can meet during the office hour, or we can arrange to meet, because everybody is not having the same free time. That's the reason why I don't really fix an office hour time. But when you have a question and my email is not really explaining it well enough, we can arrange. We just need 5 or 10 minutes. Some chapters I will organize a homework session when I know that this chapter have a lot of difficult questions and record it. But if there is nobody there, you might not benefit much from it. So from time to time, I will make a homework session to explain some of the homework problems. And I will encourage those who are free to attend such session, because your questions will help us explain better and understand better what the chapter content is about. So you will also have quizzes. Each quiz is 2 points for the 10 chapters. There are 10 of them. And the quiz will be, I think, about 10 questions each time. And you have 3 attempts. Once you complete your homework, you can make your first attempt. For example, at the end of today, you can try the first attempt for the first quiz. If you don't do well, you might identify questions that you felt like you did not understand. And when you go back to the PowerPoint or the textbook, you read and emphasize more on those aspects that you did not understand. Or you might send me an email to say, I thought I understood this question, but my answer is marked wrong. Can you tell me what I'm doing wrong? And we can meet on Zoom. We can meet on Zoom, or I can send you an email to explain to you how you should do to get it right before you go to the second attempt. And always make sure that you are close to get everything right before you make a third attempt. So you have 3 attempts. The purpose of this quiz is to make sure that you understand the content of the section the content of the chapter. So there will be 3 exams. So the first exam will be on chapter 1, 2, and 3, I think, which is 15 points. I think the distribution of those points are here. Yeah. The second exam is on chapter 4, 5, and 6, and which is also 15 points. And I'm looking at the distribution is here. And then the final exam is 20 points. Okay, let me check what I'm seeing it here. All these assignments are scheduled here. You can see the assignment schedule. Discussion is due on Wednesday. Chapter 1, homework and quiz are due on Wednesday, also at 11:59. So if you forget, you can always come here. Once I have set the date also on Canvas, you can check it on Canvas. So you have homework, quizzes, and exam. Your exam is similar to quizzes, but most of the time it's only two attempts for exam. So I generally make it available early enough. Don't wait until the last minute before you begin to do your assignment. Sometimes you might forget the date, or you might not submit it on time and you will be late. I give you a margin of 2 days for you to still complete your assignment. But each day that is passing, you are going to be losing a quarter of the 2 points that you have, like for a quiz. So I will advise you to make sure that you complete your assignment on time. But if for some unforeseen circumstance you have an excuse, you should let me know ahead of time. Don't wait until the time has passed before you tell me that, oh, you were busy, or you were at the hospital, or there was something happened in the family, or it is good always to let me know ahead of time so that I am aware that these students that have not done otherwise, I will put a 0 there. And once I put a 0 there, when you are doing it, I will be reducing the 0.25. So generally at midnight of that day, most of the time early in the morning, I come and check the quizzes and homework, and I start by giving 0 to all those who have not done it. So if you happen to do it within those 2 days, you will get your score reduced with 0.25. So there will be 2 projects, each for 5 points. That is why on the distribution of points here, you see projects for 10 points. So this project, you are going to be in a group to do it, in a group of 2 to 4 students. So as from now, you can, if you have people or other students that you want to work with, you should let me know so that I put you in the same group. Otherwise, I will, by the end of this week, I will randomly put you, most likely by Sunday, I will randomly put you on a group if you have not specified to me who you will prefer to be with. When you tell me who you, I will start working with those who tell me who they will prefer to work with. If you don't tell me, then I will put you in a group randomly. Any questions so far? So to answer me, you can just open your mic and speak. So this is essentially what it is about the course. As we all know, it is only 7 weeks. If every day you do something about the course, you are not going to feel it heavy. But if you are skipping the work and waiting for the day it is due to do everything, you will have the impression that it is just all confusing. If you don't have any question, I will now go back to the canvas. So to know what is going on in the class, you click on the module. Most of you who are already on campus know about this, but some students are new here. And you can go over most of the things I have said here. To join me on Zoom, just click on Zoom as most of you did today. And this week, you can see that you have the audio PowerPoint. If you click on it, it will open the audio. If I click on it, I have this, but it is better always to download it so that you have it on as a PowerPoint, single PowerPoint. It's more difficult to go over it through the through Canvas. So now we are on chapter 1. Of the course. If you want to take a quiz, you click on the quiz and it will open the quiz for you. If you want to take submit your homework, you go back to module. Here I have chapter 1, homework problems. For those of you who don't yet have your textbook, you can click here to see the questions for chapter 1. I thought to the 2 chapters, the first 2 chapters, generally I put the first 2 chapters. I'm going to look. If you don't have the textbook yet, let me know. I can put maybe chapter 2 as well. So if you click on this chapter 1 homework problems, it gives you the homework problems for chapter 1. If you are ready to submit, you would have typed your homework on Word. You can move here, and then you will click on once your homework is ready, you click submit assignment, and then here you will choose the file. If you want to type in your homework, you click text entry or file upload. On file upload, you click choose the file and then upload your file and click submit. If for some reason, always make sure you check what you have submitted, because sometimes you might send something to me that you did not mean to send. But if that happens, just come back and resubmit. If the exam is still open, it will change what you submitted before and submit the new one that you have. If you want to add another file, you click here, add another file to submit. This is how you submit your homework. So let me use the remaining time that we have. If there is no question, anybody has a question at this point? I want us to go together about chapter 1, which is not difficult. And some of these things are not difficult, but sometimes when you are going over it on your own, you might not see it as easy as it is. So if you get a little bit confused, if you don't understand something, send me an email. So getting started, what is statistics? We want to define what statistic is. So in this chapter, we are going to learn what are variables. These variables are the information that a statistician generally collects from individuals that he is studying. So we will distinguish between quantitative and qualitative variables. Quantitative variables are those variables that are numbers that you can add and subtract. We also have qualitative variables that are quality, like color. So we are going to learn to make the difference between a quantitative and qualitative, especially for qualitative variables that are expressed as numbers. For example, zip code is a number which represents the name of a city. It is not actually a number that you can add or subtract to get anything meaningful. So in a study, we want to identify what a population is. A population is the entire collection of individuals that are involved in the study, but the sample is a portion of the population. So you should be able to make a difference between a sample and a population. We also will compute values, for example, the average, the mode, the median. Those are measures, even the size. So when a measure is about a population, we will call it a parameter. And when it is about a sample, we will call it a statistics. For example, we may want to estimate the number of individuals in the county that are infected with COVID. So we may just take a sample of 100 people and now determine how many of them are infected. That sample gives us what we call a statistics. We might feel like it is 2% of the population of the sample. So that is a statistic. It gives us, because it was random, we are going to discuss about randomness as well. Because it was random, it gives us a reflection of what that proportion could be for the entire population. That is what we generally call statistic estimation. So we usually use a statistic, which is a measure from a sample, to estimate a parameter, which is a measure from a population. So on your quizzes, you are going to be given information and you are going to ask to identify whether it's a parameter or it's a statistics. It's a statistic because it is the result of a measure from a small portion of the population. So we are also going to classify variables into their level of measurement. So we generally have 4 levels of measurement: nominals, when it is only name and cannot be ordered; ordinal, the order is there, but they are not numbers that you can add and subtract; interval, okay, interval begins with numbers. In interval, you can add and subtract, but it's something that we will call a meaningful zero. It does not have a meaningful zero. And the last one is ratio. When you go through the PowerPoint again, you will recall what I'm talking about. At the level of ratio, it has all the characteristics of the other 3 levels of measurement. In addition, it has a meaningful zero. So ratio is the highest level of measurement. So we are also going to compare descriptive and inferential statistic. In descriptive statistic is generally what you get immediately once you collect your data. Inferential statistic is the inference you make after getting the information from the descriptive statistics. So I have actually gone over chapter 1 summarily, and we are going to discuss with some examples. So we define statistic as a study that consists of collecting, organizing, summarizing, and presenting data using graphs in order to analyze and make predictions or draw conclusions. So the first part that consists of collecting, as you get survey, organizing on a frequency distribution table, we learned that in chapter 2, summarizing, identifying measures such as the average, the standard deviation, and so on, that is summarizing. And then using graphs like the histogram, like a frequency polygon, like a Pareto chart, a circle graph, presenting those data using graph. That portion that consists of collecting, organizing, summarizing, and presenting data is called descriptive statistic. At that level, you are not making any inference about a generalization or about a population. You are just speaking about the sample that you have, is descriptive statistic. As you begin to make an inference from what you get, it is called inferential statistics. It consists of making predictions or drawing conclusions. So as I said, there are 2 types of statistics: descriptive and inferential. Descriptive is what you get from the sample. Inferential is when you generalize it to the population. I've already told you about parameter and statistics. Let's get into an example here. We may be interested in studying apple produce in the state of Pennsylvania. The population will consist of all the apple produced in Pennsylvania. Naturally, there is no way you can get an account, you can account for all apples that grows in Pennsylvania. So that is one of the characteristics of a population. It is not something that you can really control. So we will take a sample of the apples produced in Pennsylvania. That is a portion of it. We may decide that we want to take 1,000 apples. So in order to make good inference, reliable inference about the population, we will want this sample to be representative of the population. We are not going to go to one store and buy 1,000 apples. We will make sure that this apple represents all the apples that are produced in Pennsylvania. So we will collect the data, and we will have to decide what aspect of that apple do we want to study. Do we want to study the taste? Is it sweet, not sweet, or very sweet? Is it the size that we want to study? Is it big, small, medium? You might want to also study the size in terms of the diameter. What are the measures of the diameter? Is it 2 inches, 3 inches? These are quantitative data. You might even want to study color, which is qualitative. So as I mentioned before, we have quantitative and qualitative data. Quantitative and numbers. When we speak of numbers, we mean quantities that could be added or subtracted. But sometimes a number might be used as a name, like your identity number. It is not a quantity, it's a quality because it's your identity. You cannot say that my identity number is bigger than your identity number because the size of it does not make sense. So you cannot compare two identity number in terms of how big or small they are. It's meaningless. So some numbers are used for qualitative, and we know that they are qualitative because adding or subtracting them does not make sense. So level of measurement, as I said, there are three levels of measurement. The lowest level is when data can only be referred to in terms of their names. In this case, you cannot order them. For example, color. So green, red, yellow is nominal. As I mentioned, identity number is at the nominal level. So you cannot rank the identity numbers. So, or the rank is not really like in terms of value. If, in addition to being nominal, the variable can be ordered, like like we say apple size in terms of small, medium, large, extra large, then you get into the ordinal level. At that ordinal level, you can rank the values, but they are not numbers. You cannot add or subtract them. So above ordinal is the interval level. At the interval level, you get into the numbers. And those numbers, you can add and subtract them. But something about them is that they don't have a meaningful zero. For example, when we speak of temperature, when you say 0 degree Fahrenheit, it doesn't really mean like no heat at all. It is just a reference. Actually, when you are speaking of 0 degree Fahrenheit, that same value is minus maybe 20 degrees Celsius. For example, when you are talking about 32 degrees Celsius, it is actually, 32 degrees Fahrenheit is actually 0 degrees Celsius. This is to let us know that the zero that we are using is just an indication. It is not like there is no heat. So the variables that are of this type are called interval level. We can also speak about time. When we say that this class started at 3 p.m., maybe you had something that you were doing at 11 a.m. So we don't say that this class started at 3, mean that it started before 11. You are so used to that you don't realize that when you say 3, you are making an artificial zero at noon. So time in terms of when we start, when we end, is an interval because the zero of it is not a meaningful zero. When we say noon is 0, it does not mean there was no time before noon. It just means a reference. So at the ratio level, we have a meaningful 0. I want to start with the example of time. Look into in a different way. If I am talking about how long have we been in class this afternoon, you can just look at your time and say 33 minutes. The duration of time that we have spent together is a ratio level of measurement because at exactly 3, we had not started. How long were we in class at that time? It was 0. Even though it is time, the meaning of the time when you are speaking about the duration or when you are speaking about a time like when we will end the exam, when we will start, this time are interval. But if it's duration, how long does it take you to go to the store? This is ratio. How long does it take you to move from where you are and remain where you are? It's 0. So length, time in terms of duration, weight, these are ratio level. Most of the time, like how much money do you have is a ratio because you can say I have nothing when you mean it, because sometimes people say I don't have money when they have. Just because what they have, they feel like it's too small. That's not what I'm talking about. So what income is, how much money do you make? is ratio. So we have 4 levels of measurement: nominal, only name, no order; ordinal, order, no addition, no subtraction. So you can observe that nominal and ordinal are for qualitative data. For quantitative, we have interval and ratio. So on your quizzes and homework, you are going to be given variables and you will have to decide whether it's nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. So you will go over this other example. I want to skip it, go to random samples. As I told you now, when we want to study a population, we think about a sample because it is always difficult to account for all members of the population. In order for a sample to be representative of the population, we need to be sure that every member of the population have the same chance to be part of the sample. That is what we call a random samples. The method of obtaining random samples is called sampling techniques. There are generally 4 sampling techniques, and a combination of 2 or 3 of them will give other type sampling techniques. The most obvious one is the simple random sampling. In simple random sampling, individuals are randomly selected. Most of the time, random numbers are used to do this kind of selections. Other method of making a simple random sampling will be, for example, to write the name of all the members of the population on pieces of paper and then randomly pick some. You could do that if you have a small population. For example, in a class of 30 students, I want to randomly select 10. I can write their name of pieces of paper, mix them, and select. But the most common method used in statistics is the use of random numbers. In your textbook, you have a random number table, but the easiest and most accessible way is the use of Excel. I'm going to use Excel now to show you how to get a random sample using simple random technique. So I want to share my screen using Excel. Suppose I have a population of 1,000 individuals. What I will do in simple random sampling using random numbers is to assign numbers to those individuals from 1 to 1,000. And then I will come here and press equal to, and I will type random, and you will see below a random between. So I want to choose one number between 1 and 1,000. Between 1 and 1,000, it gives me the number 119. If I wanted to randomly pick one individual, the individual with number 119 will be selected. But if I wanted to choose 20 people out of those 1,000 for my sample, I can just decide to go back to equal to random, choose one number, the first number, and I will bring my cursor here. We will be doing this often. You see how I bring my cursor here? And when I see this cross or plus, I will drag it down to get 20 numbers. When I get to 20, I stop. I get 20 numbers, meaning that I will select all these individuals for my random number. I want to use this opportunity also to discuss about simulation. We are going to learn about simulation. In a simulation, which is kind of a random technique, in a simulation, you replicate a real life situation using a computer software. In this case, for example, I might want to use these random numbers to toss a coin. I will say that if the number is odd, I will consider it as head, and if it is even, I will consider it as tail. So in this my example, the first toes is tail. The second is tail. The third is tail, tail, tail. Then I have head, 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 then tail, tail. So this is just an example of simulation. We will come back to simulation. What I was talking about was sampling technique, simple random sampling. You randomly select individuals from a population. The second method is systematic sampling. In systematic sampling, you rank the population again and then choose the kth individual. For example, you might want to interview a certain number of people in the city where you are. You can decide to choose a busy intersection and stop there and count up to 5, and the fifth individual, you select that individual. This is a method of randomly getting individuals from your population. Another example is stratified sampling. In stratified sampling, you divide the population into social groups that we call strata. It could be, for example, income level, for example, medium, low income, high income. You can also decide that you want to divide them into geographical area, for example, urban, suburban, rural, and then within each of those strata, you randomly select a portion of your sample. Somebody might want to make a study about the behavior of students on campus or their choice of a proposal, and you decide to subdivide the population into class. For example, freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. So these are strata. In each of them, if you want to make a sample of 30, you might say, I want to choose 10 freshmen. They are going to be on campus for long. I'm going to choose 8 sophomore. I'm going to choose maybe 7 junior, and I'm going to choose maybe 5 senior. That is, you determine proportion. So for example, this is an example I've given to you anyway. So this is stratified sampling. In stratified sampling, you subdivide the population into social groups, and within each group, you take a portion of your sample. The last one, the fourth one, is cluster sampling. In cluster sampling, which is generally geographic, like school district or zip code, you decide to randomly choose a cluster. A cluster could be a zip code. In Pennsylvania, for example, we may want to pass a law of a certain behavior, maybe like people should wear masks, and we decide that we are going to choose 3 counties, and we randomly choose 3 counties and apply that rule for a time and then study. So in the cluster, all the members of the cluster are selected, but the clusters are randomly selected. Students always mix between cluster and stratified. In stratified, you divide your population into strata. Every member of your population is in some strata, and within each strata, you randomly select a portion of the sample. For cluster, instead, you randomly select a cluster, and all members of the clusters are participating into the project. So a researcher could combine more than one method, or a researcher could conveniently use data. Sometimes you will have convenient sampling. For example, I can just go to the registrar office and get information about student is convenient sampling. I might just ask my classmate that I met randomly and want to study the blood type of individuals, and I'll just ask my classmate what are their blood type. These are some convenient sampling. So in doing research generally, we obtain results from sample, and then that result that we get from sample is not necessarily the value of the parameter. So the difference between a statistic and a parameter is called sampling error. For example, if I want to know the average age of students in a large campus, I can randomly select 30 of them and find the average age of those 30 students randomly selected. So when you have used the appropriate sampling technique to get a sample that is representative of a population, the result you get from the sample is generally not exactly what the parameter is. The difference between the two is called a sampling error. But if our error is the result of a wrong sampling, then we will call it a non-sampling error. So the best sampling techniques generally depend on the type of research you are doing. So there is no sampling technique that is like the best. So in your quizzes, you are going to be having some sampling techniques, and you will be asked to determine what type of sampling. Is it simple random sampling? Is it systematic sampling, or stratified sampling, or cluster sampling? So each time you can go back to your PowerPoint and make sure that you can identify or associate the technique that is used with the one you are going to choose as your answer. So the last part is in experimental design. In experimental design, we go through the main guideline in doing research. First, you want to identify the individuals that you want to work with. You want to know what is the variable, what information do you want to get from those individuals. If you want to study apple, what do you want to study? Is it color? Is it their size? And when you speak of size, do you want it as qualitative or quantitative? You want to determine whether you want to use the entire population or just a random sample. And you will decide what sampling techniques is best to achieve your result. In your data collection plan, address issues such as ethics, subject confidentiality, and privacy. In some cases, you might want to contact the school to know what are the organization from where you are going to get the individuals from your sample. Sometimes some research cannot be performed on human, for example, without approval from the IRB, Institutional Research Board of the institution in which you want. You want to make sure you follow all the protocols so that you don't get into trouble with your research. Then you collect data. You want to decide how you want to collect the data. Do you want to send survey questionnaires by email? Do you want to go on the field and discuss face-to-face, interview individual directly? And you want to decide what sampling techniques are you going to use and what inferential statistic are you going to use. Finally, in the process of your research, you want to note all the concern you might have had about data collection, method, and list recommendation for further studies. You can always come back to this. So as we say, you can decide to study the entire population. When a study concerns the entire population, when it is possible, it is called a census. If you are in a small university like St. Francis, you can decide that I'm going to send an email to the whole school. Everybody will receive and everybody will give me an opinion that I will study. When you are studying everybody, your study is a census. When you are studying just a sample, your study is a sampling study. Another type of study that I mentioned is a simulation, which consists of using a computer software to replicate a real life situation. So in some of your quizzes, you will have questions to decide whether it is a census, a sampling, or a simulation. Sometimes students will mix simulation with experiments, and we are going to go over experiments and observation. Simple fact, in some study, the researcher merely observe individuals and do not affect the response of the individuals. For example, if you want to study the level of aggressivity of students at the kindergarten, you might just stand there and study if they are aggressive or not without doing anything on them. When in your research, you do not affect the result that you are getting, that type of research is called an observational study. But if you have to affect them, for example, You can decide to give alcohol to individuals to see how long they are going to sleep. So this is an experiment. You can decide to teach students in a certain way to see how they will respond to knowledge. That is an experiment. So in an experiment, the researcher deliberately imposed on the individual some treatment in order to determine the response that he is going to get. In observational study, the researcher merely observed. In research, we also come across what is called the placebo effect. A placebo effect occurs when subject receives no treatment but incorrectly believes they are doing well. For example, we could decide that you can come to my office and you are complaining about headache, and I just give you some candy that looks like a pill and tell you, oh, just take it, suck it up, and then you will feel better. And then you begin to feel better, immediately you take it. Sometimes some people go to the doctor, and once they get there, they are already well. So this placebo effect has the problem that sometimes some treatments are approved when they are not actually useful, which was just the result of a placebo effect. Some pitfall of survey, you can go over this one. And in some cases, we have other type of variables that could affect the result of our data collection. We have lurking variable. Is one for which no data have been collected, but that nevertheless has influence on other variables in the study. For example, I might want to determine if the time you spend studying has something to do with your result in the test. And there might be something like the weather that can affect your result, and I did not know. So there is also confounded variable. In confounding variables, sometimes two variables are behaving the same when they are not actually connected. For example, if during the summer you want to study if there is a relation between the quantity of soda people drink and the number of people that drown, you might feel like there is a connection. Meanwhile, it is just the same reason that is making people to drink more soda, that is making them to swim, and for that reason, as they swim, they drown. So in statistical research, sometimes we want to look into such details. Okay, we have gone over chapter 1. That's why I wanted us to quickly do that. And if you have a question, feel free to send me an email. After this, you may try to do your homework. And if you complete your homework, make a first attempt on the quiz. If you do well, that's another thing. If you do very well on your first attempt, let's say you have 2/2. If you like, you can take a second attempt. If on your second attempt you have 1/2, the 2/2 is what is going to remain. So generally, what remains for your score is your highest score. So you can take, even if you do well, you can still retake the quiz just to learn more as you are preparing for the exam. Any questions so far? Okay, as I said, feel free to send me an email. If you are confused, just send me an email. I will be happy to clarify any issue to you. Okay. Thank you for participating, and most likely we will meet again on Thursday. I will send you an email to confirm at 6 p.m. as you can see on Canvas. Or would you prefer 4? I don't know. Should we, maybe anybody has an issue with this time?
Six works for me.
6 is better for you. Anybody has something against 6? Maybe we should just go by that. Because many people sometimes prefer.
Wait, is that like?
My question is, should we meet at 6 or 4 or 3? 3 or 4 is essentially the same. So that's why. What I mean is later in the
I think
afternoon. Pardon?
I think 6 o'clock.
Okay, we will go with 6 so far. If somebody has a problem with that, as I told you, we are recording. You can always come back to the recording. So let's meet on Thursday at 6 p.m.